the latest top tips, reviews and advice, please subscribe below.
Hello and welcome to All's Outdoors with me, Mike. Today I'm going to give you guys a bit of a tutorial video about how to attach sort of a front canopy or front extension onto your tent. So through this video basically we'll go through step by step about the process of how the best method would be, and also little things that you may not realise that might help rather than hinder you when you're trying to do this process. So for this particular model I'm using the Outdoor Revolution Safari Ozone model, and then we've got the sort of front extension. As a rule of thumb anyway, what you tend to find is a lot of the front awnings that you get for these kind of models, if you take the measurement of the front awning, and that's usually what size it is to be again. So if you're ever sort of worried about how much, or wondering how much space actually you get in addition to it, always, like I said, use what's built onto the tent as a guide, and that way you can get a bit more of an information about how big it is. You think, okay, it's going to be this space again. So we've got a ground sheet. So typically most awnings do tend to come with ground sheets. They're not normally an optional extra, but almost what I want to do first and foremost is kind of prep a bit of space. If it's kind of a windy weather, you might want to go about it as a different approach. But I'm going to sort of remove the front guide points really, just to give you enough room at the front of the awning, just to lay things out and then also line everything up. The front pegging points are perfectly fine. I'd say if you're in sort of a bit more exposed area, I would probably leave this till the last point to actually putting the canopy on or even in place. Just because your tent might need that little bit more extra support. So what we'll do is we'll unravel it. So the zips are at that side. So locate the zip first and foremost. Then we can kind of spread it all out. So usually you can tell what the interior and exterior side is. So for this one, because it's inflatable, the beam's on the inside. So I know this one here is that ledge. Now, it depends on the make and model of the actual sort of front canopy itself. Some, for example, will just be a zip just along the top. Others will be a zip all the way around. Admittedly, having a zip all the way around is more thorough because you've got almost like a complete kind of enclosure at the front. You haven't got to worry about trying to get the baffling tight to the material. So, now we've got to the stage here. Where's the gaffers you from? Anyway. So, always what I try to do is your zip runner itself is either going to be on the awning or on the tent. More often than not, it's actually on the front sort of awning because must be on here then. There you go. Like I said, this chop and change. Typically, they tend to be more on that than that because it's it's an extra. Not everyone wants it. So I've located this side here, and usually you'll find a little bottom part there. So a little bit. On this one, it says THC, which is the brand of the zip. Sometimes I say YKK. Now what I'm going to do is just insert that directly into there. Occasionally you might find that your side guide points are a bit of a hindrance. So for example here, the guide point is actually in front of the zip. And particularly with the zip there's a baffle. Now, it'd be worth looking beforehand to see, when you get to the zip point, whether there is any sort of slit so you can put the guide rope through and peg out. But again, something you can do kind of after the fact. So let's remove the side guide points, providing the weather's okay. That one there. So we're basically, again, what you might find a bit easier, if you open up the front door or roll it down, if you can, or roll it to one side, that way you can step in a bit closer. So doing a little bit of prep makes quite a bit of difference. So let's undo the front door. So on this one, like I said, I can leave that peg down the ground bottom, and then I now can step happily on the ground sheet rather than to that point. So we want to kind of insert this. If you've got a second pair of hands, it makes life a little bit easier, but doing it on your own is never a bad thing. So insert that, and what you want to do is kind of have one hand going ahead of the time stretching it across. And it's basically putting less strain on the actual zip itself. And then when you go into this point, you can pretty much do it from the inside. So typically zip pullers will have an inside and outside zip. So you can just sort of bring that across, bring it up, move across a bit more. Go again. Obviously, it helps if you're tall, makes a big difference. But also, kind of having the teeth showing and marrying it up just means it's a hell of a lot smoother than doing it that way. And then it pulls down the end. Now, what you tend to find as well is there is sort of 2 points. One, which is almost a baffle that's on the front of the tent as well. So on this particular model, that goes over first. So you want to cover that zip because essentially, you know, zips aren't watertight. They're not weather tight. So you want to make sure that's completely over. Like I said, if need be, what you might find is you need to sort of push that back, get in the middle, but I've got that looking quite nice. And then on this particular model, there is a secondary clip here as well. So you've got a little carabiner clip. That will actually clip onto this little tab we've got located here. So that's just going to give a bit more security. Hello, hello. And again, we've got the same here as well, so I can bring that forward. That way it's almost in many ways taking kind of the strain purely off the zip. Now you'll find there's an extra baffle that goes over like so. I would probably do this, do the middle part itself, because when it's inflated, you're going to really, really struggle to kind of get that up. So if I push that over now, it relies more heavily on kind of the pegging points on the side, because it's almost like elasticated. But by doing that initially, and what I would probably say even to this point now is what we'll do is we'll peg the sides round to hold it. So, just do a rough sort of peg. You almost want to go back a little bit. So the idea is you're kind of following the seam that runs down the line here. So follow that seam, and the guys, again, if you've got like a colour tone like this, often that marries kind of this part here. It's the same kind of width. You're going dead straight down. And then you want to kind of peg it. I'd always put probably extend on the most and peg it so it's just a fraction back in comparison to what it is. Because what you'll find is when you tension it forward, that will push forward a little bit. Do the same this side. Right, so now we've got a nice bit of a balloon. So what we're going to kind of do now is we'll sort of peg the front out and get that looking a bit squarer, and then from then we can kind of pump it up and peg it out. So, like I said, it depends on kind of what canopy you got and how it all sort of works. But we'll go nice and square. Key thing obviously is you want to make sure you've got almost like a perfect rectangle running along the side. So you can use that very much like a size guide, that you kind of get that dead square. Do the same this side. Make sure the front door is obviously shut up when you're doing this as well, if you've got a front door on it, just because you want to make sure you're not tensioning it too far that you can't suddenly open the door up. Often you'll find as well, sometimes they'll sort of pull out a little bit, but make sure the zip reel is fully on the bottom. You can tweak these a little bit, and just for good sense I'll also peg that. Again, you want that sort of perfect kind of square shape with a little bit of tension across as well. Again, you can tweak it sort of after the fact if need be. So now we've got that quite happily on, we'll grab the pump. So it depends on this point here. Once it's sort of safely secured down, I would then sort of kind of pumping up from that point then. Yeah, you can always use an electric pump if need be, but keeps yourself fit. Because of the span, I might need a little bit of help up, but to be fair, on this occasion, we're okay. Wicked. So now we got that up, what we'll do, I think, is just initially give some bracing. So we'll peg the front straps out, just to get our roof looking quite nice and taut. So I would say if you've got these kind of storm straps on the front, you don't need to have the ones that's on the official tent itself. Reason being is it's still, this webbing point is still torsioning that roof. So you've still got a decent amount of support from that point there as well. And again, we'll just kind of peg it out. It's a bit windy today, isn't it? Always want to insert your peg at kind of like a 45-degree angle. That way you get kind of the best amount of tension. And you see, it's a bit windy today. You can always tweak it a little bit after the fact, but it's good just to kind of get the main bits in place. It's looking quite good, actually. With gyro ropes, you always want to make sure you follow the seam directly down, just because it's where kind of it's been engineered and designed, so you're pulling directly on the seam, and it helps to keep it really nice and taut. And doing things like crossing over the peg points also helps quite a bit. And I'm a big key fan of sort of extending it fully out. And then what you can always do is, you know, give you a little bit more adjustment. You know, you're not going to go any further than that. If anything, you know, there's normally more give in the material than the point itself. Just tweak that a little bit. Some additional gyro ropes there if we need to. Sometimes you can be a bit cheeky and just use the same pegging point. Just put more strain on that pegging point. But, you know, it's kind of up to you what you want to do with it, really. Otherwise, don't get all the pegs married up. But yeah, the ground sheet itself you can always put in afterwards. To be perfectly honest with you, it depends on how you're going to use section. If that section's going to be kind of almost your sort of wet dry area for cooking, then it works quite nicely. I'd say, you know, leave it out. Alternatively, lay that flat and peg in it as well. With the remaining kind of webbing, sort of the storm straps and guide points that are on the tent its point, I would always recommend tying those up, otherwise it'd be a bit of trap hazard. Especially ones in the centre, the ones on the side which are kind of here, you know, if you've got the space and you might be able to be fair, see if we can tweak that a little bit. Promise you do that and peg it out, because I say there's no actual slit in this particular one. It just means that this kind of fabric's going to sort of flap around a bit more. And like I said, when you've got a zip going all the way down, you get a much, much better seal. And it just sort of sits a little bit nicer. But it depends on how each manufacturer kind of does it, really. But you can see, you know, a good sort of space. You can get that roof looking really nice and taut. You've got almost that sort of like wet dry area before you enter your nice clean carpeted sort of section. And it means suddenly that having a front awning like this, the actual built-in front awning to the tent can then be sort of open to living area. So a lot of the divisional doors open up. But As you can see, that quite nicely fits around and gives you that sort of bit more versatility, extra space. It's only going away for a longer period of time. You can put up and down if you wanted to. But yeah, in essence, that's kind of how you would pitch kind of a front awning. Admittedly, if you've got like a poled version with like vestibules and things like that, often when they don't have zipped, what you find is you've got to kind of rely on the baffle, essentially the excess fabric, to go over the beam or over the pole for that matter. So again, like we did with this sort of scenario here, you're relying on the sort of tension over that sort of ridge point, pulling it back. And a lot of time you can buy things like extra cord and just almost then attach it onto there, pull that back as well, and it just helps to secure it a bit more. So it sits a bit nicer. You're not going to have the issue when the wind comes and sort of comes underneath it and tries to slip it off. But you can see that's quite, admittedly the sides are a little bit baggy because you probably go a little tighter. But it works quite nicely, fills a part of the tent and gives you a whole more sort of extra versatility, sort of internal space. So quick, simple and easy, especially when you've got the air version anyway. And that's kind of how you would pitch the front canopy. If you want any more questions or queries or anything, other videos you'd like us to see us to do in tutorial videos about, adjusting it here or there, just let us know and comment in the blocks below, or visit our website for the sort of list of sort of awnings and extras you can buy that are universal as well as bespoke for your tent. But thanks for watching, and we'll see you again soon.